if that was to happen, I should take the momentum I have and just say, all right, you've already been through this process. It's not as hard as you think. Keep going. Use the momentum you have. If you're motivated to do it, just start it.
It's a $12,000 business course. And I'm not buying it not because I can't afford it. It's not the right time. I can easily afford it, actually. I just know that I would rather use those resources elsewhere right now.
Next Level Nation, welcome back to another episode of Next Level University, where we help you level up your life, your love, your health, and your wealth. We hope you enjoyed yesterday's episode number 1701, what you say you value versus what you actually value. Today, for episode number 1702, if now isn't the right time, when will it be? When you and I are getting ready to do a new round of group coaching, many times we're messaging people who said, hey, reach out in the future. Right now is not the right time. Mm-hmm. And one of the messages I've gotten very often when I reach out to someone is they say, wow, this is perfect timing that you're reaching out because blank. And I'm all for that. I love that. I'm glad right now is the right time. I'm glad it feels aligned. I'm glad you feel abundant. I'm glad you have the time, the energy, the space, whatever it is. But the reason I wanted to do this episode is when you have that moment where you say now isn't the right time for anything. Now isn't the right time for a relationship. Now isn't the right time for a move. Now isn't the right time to look for a new job. Now isn't the right time to do this, to start this thing, to stop this thing, whatever it is. When will it actually be the right time? And again, not from a motivational, inspirational, rah-rah place, from a logical, seriously, when would be the right time? What are the signs that it's the right time? What would actually need to happen for you to do it? Because I think we can get stuck in when this happens, then this will happen too. Mm-hmm. This happens to me very often. I get stuck in waiting for the next thing, and then the next thing, and then the next thing. Right now, it's the trip. So if you're listening to this, I am in Scotland. That was like the next thing. It's like, okay, after that, I'll be able to do this. And then it was, there's a million of those.
Yeah, Next Level Live was a big one.
That was a big one. We have a bunch of those, but I know everybody else does too. It just might not be in the same way or the same direction or whatever. So that's where I wanted to go with this episode. How are you going to know when it's the right time? Is it going to take someone asking you? Is it something you have written down somewhere? Do you just feel like you know intuitively? I think everybody is different on this, but I thought it would make for an interesting episode because I've had so many people say, well, it must be a sign from the universe. I'm going to do it. If I didn't reach out, then they may have never done that.
Yeah.
And again, understandably, I'm sure that's happened on my end too, but I'm just curious to how well that's serving us.
I had a client who used to work with me a long time ago, and then we did relationship talks coaching, and now she still works with Emilia. And she reached out recently and said, I want to come back to coaching for a little while for a couple sessions for finance. We've been talking a lot about finance in book club. And that's actually where this episode came. So if you're listening, shout out to you. And she booked on my calendar, and we're going to do a couple sessions on finance. And it was this weird, so Kevin and I had this interesting conversation behind the scenes of, well, why now? Not from a negative place, but from an actual wanting to understand place. It's this interesting conundrum that we get caught in of, well, I'll get a coach when I have finances, but you won't make more money until after you get the coach. It's, I'll get a personal trainer when I'm in shape, but it's getting the personal trainer that actually gets you in shape. So it's this, we get caught in this conundrum. And so two things came up for me. Number one was a metaphor about Next Level University. Next Level, the mountain climbing. On the front of the Dreamliner, we have a mountain. I think about this all the time now because I use this every single day. So obviously I'm seeing there's a star at the top of the mountain. That's your ultimate dream. And then there's sort of these base camps. So it's a jagged line for those of you who aren't on YouTube. And so the first hump is right here at the bottom. I'm showing this on YouTube. And then there's this kind of flat line. And then there's another climb. And then there's a dip. And then there's another climb, and then there's another dip. It's actually hard to do on the camera. But the way I see it is, okay, this chapter is climb, climb, climb. Then you reach base camp 1. Then you climb, climb, climb. Then you reach base camp 2. Then it's climb, climb, climb. Then you reach base camp 3. And hopefully you're resting and relaxing at least a little bit, celebrating a little bit at each of those base camps. But if you rest too long, you lose momentum. If you rest too little, you burn out.
You and I have been talking about this for a minute, me getting a therapist. And I've been talking with Taryn for months, maybe a year. And it's the same thing. It's just, I just keep saying now isn't the right time. It's just not the... And it's not that I don't think it would be super valuable. It's not that I don't think it would be super helpful. It's more along the lines of because there's other things on my list that it's more of the right time for. And then ultimately, when I get those done, this should jump up on the list depending on what else happens. I think it's a conversation of necessity. Necessity and accountability. Because oftentimes... a lot of people will say, well, I'll start learning more about money when I have more money. It's probably not going to work that way.
Yeah.
It's probably not going to work that way. I'll learn more about relationships when I get in a relationship. I think the best time to learn about relationships is before you're in one. And while you're in one, obviously. But I'd rather study the map before I get to the mountain. So at least I have an understanding of, okay, let me just, you can't learn to swim on YouTube. But you can get an idea of how to swim on YouTube. You can get an idea of how to snowboard on YouTube. You can get an idea of all sorts of different things. To use a drill, to build a wall, whatever it is. Change your oil, fix your car. But I think this is an episode about self-awareness. What are your patterns? Are you the type of person that says, I'll do that when, but when never happens? Are you the type of person that... when you know it's time to do it, you do it immediately? And then depending on that, how do you increase and improve the pattern? It's hard. It's hard when, especially when you have a really long to-do list, if that's the way you do things. The right time is based on how much time you have. And the right time is based on the importance of the thing you're doing. I looked at my calendar today, and I was like, all right, I have I think I have like a 2-hour block and then a 1-hour block somewhere. And I just made 3 things. I said, these are the top 3 things I'm going to get done today. If I have a Saturday where I have 8 hours, 7 hours, 6 hours, whatever it is, I don't do it that way. I just literally just start hammering down the list. Because now is the right time for me to get as many of these things done as humanly possible. Today is not that day. I'm not going to get enough quantity done to make up for lack of quality today. Today, I have to go purely to quality. These are the top 3 things that are going to move the needles for me. On Saturday, there's like 8 things that are going to move the needle, and I can get all those 8 done, and part of those 8 are the big 3. So, I don't know if that has anything to do with this episode. I feel like it does, just based on sometimes the right time is now. Other times, genuinely, the right time isn't now. And it's all about making sure we understand that at a deeper level, I guess.
But it all depends on your cost-value analysis. It all depends on your decision-making paradigm. I say decision-making paradigm constantly because there's actually calculations that your brain is doing that you don't know it's doing. So the unconscious and subconscious mind is 40,000 times more powerful than the conscious mind. So it's constantly calculating what it believes you should and shouldn't do for survival. And I've been watching a lot of TED Talks lately. I've been waking up every day and doing learning first thing. It's been awesome. And I've been going down the rabbit hole of habits, how they form, cue, trigger, reward, or trigger, behavior, reward, and how this all works in our brain. Core values, core aspirations, core beliefs. The decision-making paradigm when you're in Scotland is going to be completely different.
Definitely.
And the reason why is because in Scotland, there's certain things that you can only do in Scotland. So you're going to, this is a great example. Kev, when he's at home, has the top most important priorities that he needs to get done in a given week, given month, given quarter, given day. When he's in Scotland, he's not going to visit Scotland often. So he needs to go do things that he only gets to do once. And it would be not optimal to not do that. Mm. But the moment you're home, everything changes again.
Yep. And
so I think that we don't understand when the right time is, because timing is actually an equation that your brain is calculating. It's a productivity equation. So if you have $150,000 in the bank, it might be the right time to buy that business course. If you only have $15,000 in the bank, it might not be.
Next Level Nation, what is happening? If you've thought to yourself, I want to try coaching, but you don't really know where to start, group coaching would be a wonderful place for you. That's really why we created it in the first place. We start a new round every 90 days. So if you're hearing this, go to the website, nextleveluniverse.com, and we have the landing page where you can actually hold your spot right now. Even if there's a group going on right now, you can still lock your spot for the next one. The biggest thing that we've seen is as we get closer and closer to the date, unfortunately, some people end up missing. The group fills up and they can't do it, and then they end up regretting that. So please head over to the website. The link will be in the show notes, and we would love to see you there.
Everything is based on the resources you have. You know that iceberg I've been talking a ton about? Mm-hmm. It needs to change. And I think it needs to add tools and it needs to add resources. It needs to add environment. So the resources that you and I have fluctuate. Everyone's does. Sometimes we have more cash on hand. Sometimes we have less. Sometimes we have more money coming in. Sometimes we have less. Sometimes we're paying more out. And as CFO, I've been doing a lot of finance. I'm doing 20 minutes of finance a day now. And it's helping me reallocate our resources more optimally. But time, effort, and money are the only resources you really have. And so time is one of them. Obviously. So when is the right time to get a coach? If you have a ton of extra cash on hand, now is the time. Because if you invest that money in a good coach, you can go make more money. But if you don't have any money, maybe you need to pay off debt first. All of that is depending on your own unique circumstances. And so if you and I were making 10 times more money than we are right now, there's a course I would buy today. There's a course that I'm waiting on that's very, very, very expensive. It's a $12,000 business course. And I'm not buying it not because I can't afford it. It's not the right time. I can easily afford it, actually. I just know that I would rather use those resources elsewhere right now. But again, that's a math equation that I don't know how to unpack on a podcast, brother. And it's
fair. It's fair. I think for most of us, it would help us, because I know that probably wouldn't resonate with me. I mean, I guess that would, because it's money, and it's like, okay, you have X amount of dollars, it's going to cost X amount of dollars. It's probably
time
better.
Is the same thing. You only have X amount of hours.
Well, I'm just thinking about it from like an emotional standpoint of, if I sat me down and said, hey, why don't you have a therapist yet? Like, when is it? Okay, right now is not the right time. When will it be? If I sat me down and said that. For me, it's not a money thing. It's more the barrier to doing it is more than I'm willing to invest currently.
Yep.
That's it.
Because it also requires time. You're not just investing money, you're investing time.
For me, it's the initial start. It's the startup of it. That's the barrier to me is find someone, do the first call, make sure the insurance and all that happy jazz. That's the biggest barrier for me. I'm not worried about the bi-weekly virtual. I'm not really worried about that.
Well, this is why when we reach out for group coaching, sometimes people say, "Oh, it's the perfect time," because there's a research phase that takes a lot of time too.
That's fair. Yeah, that's fair.
So everything you want to accomplish in this life, and this is why I get so frustrated with the whole work less, earn more thing. It's just not real if you look at and study productivity. The only way to work less and earn more is essentially become more valuable, but it only happens in the long term, and that's a whole nother episode I can't really focus on right now. But what I will say is you getting a therapist, it requires time, effort, and money.
Yeah.
So you need to find the right therapist, which takes time. So you have to go do research. You have to invest time on that first session to see if it's an aligned therapist. You also have to invest time to figure out if it's going to get insurance paid for it and what the price is going to be out of pocket if not. And on top of that, what if it's not the right therapist? Now you have to go do the whole process over again.
Well, and then
so
the problem
we
is
we do nothing.
And the problem is if you do it and then it's not the right therapist, you put it off again.
Exactly.
Where if that was to happen, I should take the momentum I have and just say, all right, you've already been through this process. It's not as hard as you think. Keep going. That would be my lesson for me and anyone who resonates with me and the way I've experienced life. Use the momentum you have. Use the momentum you have. If you're motivated to do it, just start it.
Yeah.
Because you'll probably get further than... You and I have been talking about... We were talking about Saturday. And you said, hey, man, we're going to change our window from 11 to 6. It's 10 to 6. Are you going to do that on Saturday? And I said, I don't want to do that on Saturday. And I don't really want to be on a ton of podcasts on Saturday. For me, when I wake up, I come into the office and I look at this list and I have no barriers to getting a ton of important stuff done. When during the week, you know better than I do, it's really hard to get a lot done during the week when you're on a bunch of calls and you're recording a bunch of episodes. It's weird for me. I just put on music, I get a cup of coffee, and I just start hammering down the list because you want to know what? Saturday is the best time for me to do it. It's the right time.
And no one else is working. This is another thing that's really cool. Not no one else, but less people are working than through the week. And so you're not being pulled on as much by the team or in general. So the weekends is where I actually get the most done, which is really cool in terms of back office stuff. But for everyone out there, the only takeaway that I would have is momentum over everything. Try to err on the side of momentum. I was on book club or meetup. I think it was a meetup. And I said, who here remembers, was this the meetup? Who here remembers being just dialed in? You were just dialed in.
I don't know.
And you were cranking. Maybe that was book club. I do that often. I said, everyone here, who here remembers a time when they were just dialed in and they were getting after it and they had momentum and they could feel it and everything was ignited and they were firing on all cylinders. Everyone remembers that time because while it was challenging to maintain, it was so fulfilling. Human beings love that. They love it. Now, eventually that all crashes and burns because you can't sustain it without burning out unless you're really, really intelligent about it. And even then Phoenixes burn down and then they rise. Phoenix burn down and rises. That's the growth journey. But remember that time when you were just on it, dialed in, your fitness, your relationship, your health, your productivity. You were getting stuff done. You were knocking down doors. You were doing it. That is what I'm always trying to sustain. 24/7, 365, I'm trying to figure out how to sustain momentum. Because momentum, people can feel it. People want to be around it. People want to be a part of it. Productivity and momentum is a sports team that has momentum. Everyone comes to the stadium. Everyone wants to cheer on a team that has momentum. They're undefeated. They're doing it. Okay, that player got injured, and the coach, is getting in a fight with this player, but the whole team, just the whole franchise, it just has momentum. I want to be that. There's something that happens when you're the one who has momentum. Everyone wants to be on a moving train. This is same with movies. Certain actors, they get momentum, and you ever see an actor or an actress who's in like 10 big films within a decade, and they just ride that wave? You got to get momentum and keep momentum. It's the hardest thing in the world, but it's the most important. And the only way to do that is to just take that next action, whether it's the therapist or whatever. Insert thing you're procrastinating here. If it's important, urgent, and significant, you got to get it done. And if it's not, you have to be okay with not getting it done.
If one of the things you've been putting off is getting around positive people, we have a Facebook group, super easy to sign up. You click a button and that's it. I think you have to answer a couple questions and you'll be in. So we'll have the link in the show notes for that. And if you are sitting here saying, you know what, I feel like it is the right time for me to do some level of coaching, our next round of group coaching starts on July 7th at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
July 9th, brother.
July 9th. Damn. I was...
I don't know why it's
in
6th,
my mind,
7th or 9th.
It was... No. In this time, it was 7th or 9th, and I was convinced it was 7th. All right, July 9th at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'll have the link in the show notes. If you enter discount code NLU listener, you'll get 30% off. And it's a great opportunity to grow and lean into more of who you are and just do some investment in yourself. There's something about investing in yourself that really, really helps you feel like you're building momentum, because you are. All right, tomorrow for episode number 1703, it's going to be a heavy one. It's going to be a heavy one, but we got to do it. Your parents aren't who you thought you were. Your parents aren't who you thought they were. That's what we're doing.
Kev's got momentum.
Yeah, I got momentum in the wrong direction, in the wrong speaking direction. That'll potentially be a heavy episode, but as you know, we want to do the heavy episodes because that's often where the most important lessons lie. So that is what we're going to talk about tomorrow. As always, we love you. We appreciate you. Grateful for each and every one of you. And at NLU, we do not have fans. We have family. We will talk to you all tomorrow.
Keep up the momentum. Next Level Nation.